Good afternoon. I'm Karen Holmes Ward. Welcome to Cityline. Heat warnings and scorching temperatures becoming more and more frequent features in weather forecasts. According to NASA, global average temperatures have been steadily increasing since the turn of the last century, and experts agree that unless something is done soon, this pattern shows no signs of relenting. But neighborhoods in Boston are not all dealing equally with the negative effects of climate change. In fact, in a study conducted by the Museum of Science called Wicked Hot Boston, 25 cars were dispatched to record temperatures across the city throughout the day. The conclusion? Extreme heat is an issue felt almost exclusively by Boston's communities of color. We went into some neighborhoods of the city to see how indicators like urban heat gain factor into an imbalance in environmental justice in Boston. If you live in Boston, just step out of your home on a summer day and you'll be struck by an undeniable reality. It's hot, really hot. According to a recent study by UMass Boston, the average daily temperature in the city has been steadily increasing. By 2080, the average daily temp in Boston could be 10 degrees higher than it is today. Not only are average temperatures on the rise, but the number of extremely hot days in Boston are increasing too. The Greater Boston Research Advisory Group concluded that if emission levels don't reduce, Boston could see a summer with up to 60 days over 90 degrees by 2080. That's 2 months of heat waves. Combating the extreme heat and rising temperatures is just one element in the fight for environmental justice equity. And in Boston, some communities have been losing the battle for resources.
If you take the map of redlining, this question of where banks were willing to invest, where the city at that time put more resources, where we planted more trees, where we made sure people had more open space, you will see a direct correlation with where some of our hottest parts of the city are. Overwhelmingly, unfortunately, the places where we did not invest, the choice was made because those communities were poorer and there were more people of color living in those cities.
Reverend Mariama White Hammond is Chief of Environment, Energy, and Open Space for the City of Boston. We spoke with White Hammond in Nubian Square to get a better idea of how policy and practice has left certain Boston communities behind.
As an example, Brookline has an agreement that you can't fly planes over Brookline. I'm guessing more people are flying from Brookline than East Boston. But you know who's living with all those pollutants, the chemicals and the noise? East Boston. Environmental justice is about asking the question, who bears the burden and who's receiving the benefits?
So who does bear the most burden? As part of the city's effort to address climate change, Climate Ready Boston published a map that displays in layers parts of the city that are most vulnerable to extreme heat. If we select low-income communities, we can see that several areas in Roxbury and Dorchester are vulnerable to extreme heat. If we select people of color, the results are even more stark, with Boston's most vulnerable communities residing in Dorchester, Roxbury, and Mattapan. Finally, if we look at areas in danger of urban heat island intensity, a phenomenon where certain areas of the city are considerably hotter than others due to a lack of green space and tree canopy, with an increased number of things like pavement, concrete, and black rooftops, we see almost a direct overlap, predominantly with Boston's communities of color. Neighborhoods like West Roxbury and Jamaica Plain, that have a mostly white population, are hardly affected at all. So what does the City of Boston plan to do with this inequity in environmental justice?
We're looking at everything from cool roof programs, which will allow us to give free white paint to folks who have dark roofs. We also have done and are continuing to do misting stations, pop-up cooling stations. We have 30 cooling tents that you can use for your community event. We're looking at adding water features in all of our parks with a specific emphasis on our parks that are in our hottest neighborhoods.
We asked some of the area residents about their experience with the heat.
There's an elderly building right around the corner to the right side and back of Nubian Square, and the elderly people tell me it gets so hot they literally have to come outside on their door stoop just to catch air at night.
Shop owner Joshua Gomes had this to say.
It does get real tough out here. One thing I have to do, I get ice buckets and coolers and I fill it up with ice, and you know, we do get a lot of people that come for that. During the summer, everybody's getting drained from the heat. these buses, they kick a lot of dust and heat all around here, so it does get extra humid in this area.
It's clear that rising temperatures in Boston are most adversely affecting communities of color. But are residents aware of their plight, and are they fighting back?
Environmental justice is racial justice.
Reverend Vernon Walker is the program director of the nonprofit organization Communities Responding to Extreme Weather, or CREW. On this evening, CREW is holding one of its climate change workshops in Dorchester, where they're partnering with Mass General Hospital to inform residents of the dangers of extreme heat and raffle off free air conditioners and cooling kits.
We help communities prepare in an equitable and sustainable way to become climate resilient, because at the end of the day, we believe that social resilience is climate resilience, and we believe in helping neighbors connect with each other, and that's why we're doing events like this here tonight.
Organizations like CREW are few and far between, and despite their best efforts, these organizations simply don't have the resources to make a sweeping impact on environmental justice in Boston.
I would like to see Climate Ready Boston work with nonprofits who are on the ground, who have a grassroots presence to ensure that resources are given. Yes, we're able to give out air conditioners tonight, but if we had access to municipal funding or state funding or federal funding, we could buy a whole lot more.
Mass General has sent along Dr. Melanie Haynes to inform residents on the health threats brought on by extreme heat and how to keep cool. She spoke with us about the contrast between heat in communities of color versus heat in predominantly white communities.
There was a study a few years back that went around Boston on a day that the ambient air temperature was around 90 degrees at Logan, and found that in urban heat islands in Boston, the surface temperature, so measuring like right above the asphalt, was 40 degrees higher, meaning you could crack an egg and fry it.
Dr. Haynes goes on to explain that although climate change can cause dangerous events like hurricanes and flooding, it's the extreme heat which poses the most danger to urban communities.
The National Weather Service reports that each year about 100 to 200 people in the U.S. die from extreme heat. More recent data suggests that the number may actually be much higher than that. People who have underlying medical conditions are at risk of having exacerbations of that medical condition during a heat wave. Heat is playing a significant contributing role. The annual number of deaths due to heat-related illness may be on the order of 1,000, 2,000, even 5,000 a year.
The disproportionate suffering in communities of color is undeniable, but there are people fighting on the front lines to bring a cooler future to our city's most vulnerable communities, and their contributions have not gone unnoticed by local policymakers. In attendance at the CREW workshop was State Representative and Global Warming House Committee member Russell Holmes, who represents neighborhoods in Dorchester and Mattapan.
The issue of climate justice and environmental justice is number one. The thing that I think stands out the most is the legislation we passed last year and was signed around environmental justice. One of the things that we thought was very important is to finally define what is an environmental justice community. If you're going to have a project in an environmental justice community, we must now have an impact study to tell us what is not only the impact of this one individual project, but what even was the impact when you look at it holistically over time.
For communities of color in Boston, the fight against climate change on the policy and legislative front has been an exhausting uphill battle. But an increasing number of community organizations are determined to confront the issue at a grassroots level. Through their hard work and diligence, these neighborhoods might change the tide of this unresolved and ongoing crisis. And when we return, we'll look at a unique approach taken by a local climate advocacy group that believes financial stability is the key to environmental justice equity.